pleasure to catch back up with Dave Wannstedt, who, of course, is part of the NFL on Fox coverage. You can follow Coach on Twitter at Coach Wannstedt. Dave, how are you and your family doing these days? We assume that you are spending May in the 239. How are you?
I am absolutely, David. I'm down here, and our grandkids came down. We've missed the spring break in Chicago in March, and we missed Easter in April. So they finally surrendered and got in a car and drove down from Chicago. They said, we need a break. So I said, come on. So we have a little bit of company here, but yeah, I don't know how, all indications that I'm getting from Fox is that there's going to be an NFL season, and whether it starts on time or what's the, as far as logistics. So I'm planning on getting back to Chicago, and then it'll be LA, and here we go. So everything is good. I have no complaints.
Dave, if you were coaching right now, what would be your biggest complaint? How hard is this for the 32 coaches in this league? They just completed a draft. They've got new players. There's going to be no mini camps. You've got coordinators installing new systems. Just how hard is this going to be to get ready from a season from a coaching standpoint?
Well, I really think that if you look at it, you got to break it down probably three different ways. I mean, now I'm thinking about it. Number one, the new coaches compared to the veteran coaches. And when you say a new coach, you're saying, well, they can get the playbook over, doing Zoom and the virtual stuff. Well, but as a new head coach, there's nothing like being on the field for mini camps, for the off-season workouts, and kind of establishing a relationship with your players one-on-one. And also you're starting to develop a little bit of a foundation or a little bit of culture for how you want the program to run and what the changes are going to be. You can't do that over a phone. I mean, it all sounds good in a clinic, but it doesn't work. So I think the veteran coaches that have kept their staffs intact for the most part and have veteran quarterbacks, they're going to come out of this thing, I think, 2 or 3 steps ahead of everybody else. I think the positions, back to your draft picks and how would you deal with it, the positions that are really going to struggle and be behind are going to be your offensive positions, in my opinion, because they're, the receivers and the quarterbacks. I mean, there's timing involved. There's from a running back standpoint, you blitz pickup. The defense blitzes a linebacker. Do I have him? Does the lineman have him? What's the call? What's the protection? So yes, I would say that the offense is going to be behind defensively, and I coach defense, as you guys know, for 40 years. I'm not slighting the defense, but we used to line up on garbage cans with defense and teach everybody their assignment. So it's a little bit easier on defense from a learning standpoint than it is on offense. So I think new head coaches, new quarterbacks, and offensive skill guys are the ones that are going to be behind.
In Bruce Arians' case with Tampa, which way, if you're going to err, do you err here? Obviously, we all know he's got Brady now, but it is how much of it do you make your system that he then has to learn, or how much of it now do you then cater your system to Brady?
Well, no, he's going to learn the system of Tampa Bay, and Tom's such a grinder. I mean, there's nobody that's more committed to doing it than Tom. So he'll learn their system, but I think what Bruce will do a good job of, Tom does certain things, certain runs that they can do, certain pass plays that they can do. Some can throw the quick out better. Other ones throw the deep ball better. So what Bruce will do is he'll kind of adjust the offense to what Tom can do best. But as far as what the offense is called and what the plays are called and what the blitz pickups are called, he has a good foundation set with his team right now, and Tom will learn that. That will not be a problem with Tom.
On the other side of this, with all these quarterbacks that were drafted early, is this kind of one of those blessings in disguise? Because we've been trying to jam quarterbacks in so quickly. And you look at the Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield class, there's still a lot of incompletes on that class. Is this maybe a little bit of a benefit for the Chargers and the Dolphins that they might be allowed to wait a little bit longer on the quarterbacks they drafted and not get the pressure to want to force someone in before they're ready?
Yeah, I mean, I think every team's a little bit different, but I'll tell you who it takes pressure off of? It takes pressure off of the general manager and the head coach, because every owner that drafts a quarterback, owners don't see it the same. Most owners don't see it the same way head coaches do. They draft this kid with the third pick. They expect him to come in and do the same thing he did at Miami that he did at Alabama, and it's not going to happen. So I think this takes a little bit of pressure off the head coach and the GM, from the standpoint that they can tell the owner, well, we didn't have the mini camps and we didn't have the off season, so we're going to be doing this a little bit slower than what you normally would. But we love him, and he's going to be the guy, so your money's spent well.
Talking the NFL with Dave Wannstedt, who, of course, is part of the NFL on Fox coverage. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Coach Wannstedt. What was your thought about the Dolphins taking Tua? Was he the guy that you wanted them to take? How concerned were you about his injuries?
I was concerned, only for the fact that when we would draft players, I wanted to see a history of positives. I'm going to be real interested to see what happens with Burrow, okay, who not, with Cincinnati, the 1-year wonder guys always made me a little bit nervous, because you really don't know. When we drafted Emmitt Smith, you saw what he did at Florida for 4 years. That I like those guys that have a history. Well, when you get back to Tua, the thing that makes me nervous, excuse me, and would have made me nervous, is that he's been hurt going back to high school. So, that's a concern. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, I love the kid, but I think there is a little bit, you have to look at it and say he was throwing to 3 receivers at Alabama. 2 of them, I think, were first-round draft picks. So I think you got to take that into account also. Now, the only other guy that I would have taken or considered taking would have been Justin Herbert. And obviously the scouts there, they know more about Chris Greer, the GM at the Dolphins. He knows a lot more about Justin Herbert and about Tua than I do. So let's give him the benefit of doubt. I think Chris does a good job.
Well, and it's hard to say say anything negatively of what their draft was this year, because the Dolphins have needed a quarterback for a while. Let's just hope they got the right one. But speaking of the Dolphins, obviously you coach there, and we all know Coach Shula passing. Just your thoughts, your reflections on Don Shula. You obviously spent time with him, and he's was such a big part of what Miami is, not just football, but just your thoughts and comments on Coach Shula.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been communicating back and forth with Mike, his youngest son, who Mike worked for me at the Dolphins, and Mike worked for me at the Bears. So, and then I was with Coach Shula. A lot of people don't realize that, but he hired me from the Hurricanes, and I was with the Dolphins for about 7 weeks. And then Jimmy Johnson got the Dallas job, and it was a promotion for me. I went to Dallas as the defensive coordinator. So I was with Coach Shula. He did offer me my first NFL job, and we always had a great rapport. And then when I was back there as the Dolphins head coach, he would come to the games on Sunday. I would see him at Dolphin functions, and it was always really good. And I think, obviously everyone wants to talk about the undefeated season, and that's an unbelievable feat. But I would also say that, to do it as long as he did it and have success over that long period of time, that to me, being a former coach, that's a thing that just is mind-boggling, that you can have success after success after success. And he did it. And I think that might be, in my mind, the most remarkable thing that the guy did on the football field.
So the only 2 losing seasons out of 33 of all the stats that could jump off the page, that one sounds like that would be pretty high on your list as somebody who did it. To think that you could coach that long in the NFL and only have 2 losing seasons.
Yeah, that's without a doubt. I mean, most coaches can't last 5 years, as a head coach. The pressure gets to them, or they have success and they get complacent and they don't do the work and the bottom falls out, or there's conflicts with the owner, the general manager, a la Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones, the egos get involved. Coach Shula was able to balance all that stuff. And you know what? too, and I got close to the family a little bit because of Mike. And, when Coach Shula's, I mean, as a man and a father, I mean, his sons and grandkids, the way they look up to him, and I remember his son Mike telling me that when his mother, Coach Shula's first wife, when she was struggling with cancer, when she was dying with cancer and she was in the hospital, Coach Shula was sleeping at the hospital. He would leave the office, go home, check with the kids after school, and then he would go and he would sleep at the hospital and then go back into the office the next day. I mean, just, there's so many stories like that away from the football realm that I think, South Florida was very fortunate to get a football coach and a man like that to represent that city.
And Mark, along those lines, I believe he missed in all his time, 33 years, they say he missed a day and a half of work. He missed the day that his first wife passed away for the funeral. He missed the whole day. And then he had surgery himself in the morning and was there after lunch. He missed a day and a half of work in 33 years.
It's pretty incredible. Pretty incredible. And it is the one thing, not just Coach Shula, but you and all these coaches, when they talk about the 16, 18-hour days, it's something that I find unfathomable. I've worked hard in my life. I don't know how that your coaching brethren have that drive, Dave. I don't know how long, do you still have it? I mean, you're in the broadcasting, so you're still studying. Was that the first thing when you basically knew you were done with coaching and you were going to be a broadcaster? Is that the first thing that changed, or do you still grind as hard?
No, I could do it now. I mean, I've been blessed with pretty decent health. I've had my share like everybody at my age, but I could still do it right now. And you know what? I don't think there's a coach out there that looks at it as a job. You know what I mean? I mean, they enjoy as crazy as that sounds, it's a blessing to be in that profession because, and I speak right now, the NFL brings me in on once a year and I go around the league and I talk to young coaches. They bring them together. And this is kind of interesting because your first or second year guys that are like the offensive assistant to the assistant to the assistant. Okay. These are the guys, and every team has to send 2 coaches. And last year it was in Tampa. It was in Tampa last year. And I come in, they bring a group of, it's a 2-day seminar, and I'm on the thing as far as being one of the speakers as being the ex-head coach that came up through the ranks. And the first question I ask these guys is, why do you want to be a coach? Why are you in this profession? And we're talking about guys sitting there like Randall L., I mean, guys that have very successful NFL careers and are now getting this coaching. And I tell them, and I say, if you're getting in this for the money or you're getting in this for the recognition or the fame, you guys are getting in for the wrong reason. You won't last long. You will not last long. And so I think the majority of coaches, we all get into it because we love the sport. We love the teaching and the coaching of it. And that's what Coach Shula was. I mean, and that's, that's why it never really was a job for me. When I knew that I was kind of hitting the end, it's when we lost the game and the losses lingered for like 4 days. And if we won a big game, the next day I was like, okay, let's move on to the next one. The losses became more impactful and more emotional in my life than the wins did. And that's stupid. I mean, that's not, something's out of whack, and you're kind of getting to the end, I think, when that happens.
Well, to switch gears in a sense, but something that's been out of whack for a while in Chicago is finding a quarterback. And you went through it even with your tenure, in which, you brought in a couple young guys, whether it be a Steve Walsh or a Rick Meyer. And then you also had your veterans that you brought in, and, Kramer and Craig, and just your thoughts on the quarterback situation in Chicago. From where we sit on the outside, it just seems as if you're paying some guy that much money and you spent a 4th-round pick to bring him in, I mean, don't you think that's who they're going to start, not Trubisky?
You insinuating that just because I had 6 quarterbacks in my 6 years in Chicago that I had a quarterback issue?
Oh, I'm saying that it seemed as if you had trouble replacing Harbaugh.
Well,
that's all I'm going to say.
very nice way of putting it. Okay, because you could have ruined my day if you would have phrased that another way. But I'll tell you what. I have, even last year, I was in the minority, and I do 2 radio shows. I have my own TV show up there in Chicago during the week, Bear shows, and I was in the minority in that city saying that I can get Mitch Trubisky into the playoffs tomorrow. But here's the deal, and for all the Bear fans listening, Don.
Oh.
Well, it says he's here, but he's not here. We kind of lost Coach there. I don't know if he's hearing us during this, but we lost him. So I don't know if he's in a bad spot in his house or if his grandson pressed the mute button on his phone. And now we've lost him completely.
There you go. I think
unfortunately.
He went to a bad area of the house. Boy, and he had it set up big, too.
Well, that's all right. Coach, we got you back. We lost you there for a second, but you just basically said you do the shows, and I was the one who said you could take Mitch Trubisky in the playoffs, and we lost you. So please go from there.
Right. Well, see, someone from Chicago must have muted this out or something. But no, I was in the minority because I believe to this day, and I'm still saying it, that I could take Mitch Trubisky and get to the playoffs. They got a top 5 defense. They got this running back, David Montgomery, that I think is going to could be a star if he gets the ball enough. But you have to do, guys, what your quarterback does best, right? A la Jay Fiedler. You got to let him move. Mitch is a good athlete. He can make throws. He studies it hard. But he's not a drop-back quarterback to throw it 45, 50 times a game. He's not Dan Marino. And I think that's what – and so if the Bears are going to try to do that with Mitch, he's not going to be successful. If they're going to play defense and run the ball and do what he does best, you'll be a playoff team and maybe a Super Bowl team. I don't know. I don't know if he's that good, but a playoff team. Now, you bring in Nick Foles with this whole off-season thing that we talked about. Nick Foles has been in like 4 offenses the last 5 or 6 years. And he's been very average. For all the Chicago fans listening, look at, and I love Nick Foles. I know him. I love him as a person and a player. Look at his numbers compared to Mitch the last 4 years. He's been very average. The best year he had was at Philly with Chip Kelly. I think it was 2015. So, and now they don't have mini camps. I think Mitch is going to be the starter. And the pressure on him in Chicago, I've been there. The first time he throws a pick, they're going to be booing him. I mean, it's a tough situation that they have right there. But I believe that Mitch Trubisky can win if you use him right. The second point, I believe that Mitch is going to come out of this thing and he's going to be the starter day one. That's just my feeling on it.
Well, I think all Bears fans listening right now were pounding their fist on the table when you mentioned Montgomery, because if there was an underused player in the league more than Montgomery last year, I'd love to know who he was, because he's a good running. I'm with you, Dave. He's a good running back, and he was not used correctly in Chicago a year ago.
Well, I watched this kid play his whole career at Iowa State. He played. We talked about history of players when we first started the show. He's got a history. He played big against Oklahoma. He played big against Texas, Iowa, the big games in his college career. This kid showed up on a solid team at Iowa State, not a great team. And, I mean, he's a guy, in my mind, he's got to be a 20-carry, a game guy if you want to get the most out of him. And at times it happened last year, and at times the guy was non-existent. So I'm going to be real curious to see when they get started if there's any philosophy changes on how to attack this. Because I'll tell you what, you can't waste that defense. Your window is closing, guys. You got a top 5 defense in the NFL, and you got good coaches on defense up there, Chucky Pagano and the crew, and you mess around another year or two, contracts are going to be up, players are going to get older, and you're going to be back to square one.
Well, and not only that, I think the GM and the coach only have 1 year. If the defense's window is 2 to 3, the GM and the coach's window may only be 1. And, Coach, we agree with you. We've been pounding the table. The Bears need to run the football more. That would help.
Play action pass, let Mitch run it. I mean, the best year, we're talking about Nick Foles, he averaged, I think, you can check this, it was either 4, I think he had 7 carries a game when he was with Chip Kelly. He averaged almost 5 yards a carry. So back in his prime, he was running the ball some, and that's what Mitch needs to carry the ball half a dozen times a game. That needs to be part of their offensive attack, in my opinion. But what do I know, right? I'm sitting there talking to you guys, right? What do
exactly.
I know, right?
Coach, all the best with your grandkids in town. Stay safe, and when it comes time to travel, safe travels. Hopefully we can talk before the season starts.
Anytime. Let me know. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
Bye-bye.
Dave Wannstedt, part of the NFL on Fox.